There's a normal picnic in the park. Then a slice above that is a picnic with generous servings of Kretschmar meats and cheeses. And a slice above that is having all your friends there to share it with. And a slice above that is having all their friends there as well. And a slice above that is having so many people and so much Kretschmar it turns into a festival of you. Kretschmar, a slice above, now at Walmart.
The comments and opinions expressed on this radio program do not constitute legal advice and do not create an attorney-client relationship. If you have a legal problem, a formal consultation will be required outside of this radio program.
This is Legal Live with Eddie and Chuck Farah. They're talking the latest legal news and answering your questions. To call Legal Live and ask Eddie and Chuck a question, grab your phone and dial 855-765-1045. That's 855-765-1045.
Welcome. You're listening to Legal Live, brought to you by Farah and Farah on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. Feel free to give us a call today. We'd love to hear from you. Our number is 855-765-1045. I'm Sheifalika, and I'm joined today by Eddie and Chuck Farah. How's it going, guys?
It's all good, Sheifalika.
Nice.
Glad to have you back. I know you took off a couple of weeks, but that's okay.
I had to go help my dad move to Kentucky, of all places.
Everybody needs some time off, you know.
That's true. Well, he put me to work, I'll tell you that.
That's okay.
Well, it's good to be back, you guys, and I was wondering what's on the docket today.
Well, I want to talk about something that was in the news here currently. There's a big mega church here in Jacksonville, and they instituted this policy that if you want to be a member of the church, you've got to sign this statement.
That's right.
That you only believe in biblical sexuality, and if you don't abide by that belief, then you shouldn't really be a member of this church.
I see. Wow.
And everybody thought that was, discriminatory and so forth. But the U.S. Constitution is very clear on that. We had a case we talked about, a few months ago, and it's right on point because the U.S. Supreme Court has already ruled on this. And this involved a case where a church employee went out on medical leave, and when she came back, they fired her. All right. So, hey, if you're in the private world, that's wrong. And you can sue for that because they're supposed to keep your job open for a certain period of time.
Right.
As you know, it may be without pay, but still the job has to be open when you get back if you take that medical leave. We pretty much all know that. But this person argued, well, I'm entitled to that also. And the court said, no, because you work for a church, it's freedom of religion, and they're not governed by, they're not held to that standard. They don't have to abide by any of those laws dealing with discrimination.
Oh, I see.
And so based on that case, that's a U.S. Supreme Court case, not just a Florida Supreme Court case, but a U.S. Supreme Court case. So this is right in line. What this church is doing here in Jacksonville, it's freedom of religion.
Wow, so they're within their rights to do that.
Yeah, they sure can, and they're protected by the U.S. Constitution in their belief that if you want to be a member of this church, you've got to sign this document about biblical sexuality. So anyway, I just thought that was right in line. I saw the story, and something we had talked about before in a different context.
Right.
But it's still very relevant to anyway. So
that's interesting. When I first saw that story, I was curious as to whether or not that was like an invasion of privacy issue or if that was overstepping. But I guess because of freedom of religion, which is protected in the Constitution, that is perfectly fine for them to be able to do. And they still give you the choice to participate or not.
Yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you. Yeah, if you want to be a member of that church, then you've got to abide by it. It's the same thing in private schools. I mean, so they're about, it's different. I mean, in public schools, you have more constitutional rights, like, search and seizure and things like that.
Right.
There have been cases where people in public schools, a teacher would try to take the phone from the student, read the text, see if they were up to something, and I couldn't do it. In a private school, you're kind of subject to their rules. If you want to be there, then you've got to abide. They could take your phone, they could read your text, they can do it. So it's different. But this is a freedom of religion thing.
Wow. Okay.
A little different. But anyway, so.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's interesting.
Yeah, but I'm going to get into something else. But as you know, the main thing, the reason why we're here, is to take your phone calls, and we want to, hopefully, we can answer them. If we can't, we know people who can answer them for you. And
That's
so
right.
your phone calls are our priority. We have things to talk about, but if you've got a legal issue on your mind and you need some, you want to tell us about it or need some help, we want to listen.
That's
So-
right. And our number is 855-765-1045.
I want to get into the Baker Act. A lot of people there was a case here in Florida, a recent case, where a lady committed suicide just hours after being released from a Baker Act hospital admission.
Wow.
And her family wanted to file a lawsuit against the hospital for releasing her.
Before,
And
okay.
so the Baker, for you who don't know, the Florida Baker Act allows doctors, mental health professionals, judges, and law enforcement to commit a person voluntarily or involuntarily to a mental health treatment center for up to 72 hours if they display certain violent or suicidal signs of mental illness. So the purpose of this act is to allow time for the evaluation and de-escalation of a crisis to protect vulnerable people from harm. It is imperative that facilities that receive Baker Act patients follow procedures to ensure these individuals are protected. That's what happened. This person is admitted to a Baker Act. The hospital gets her in. They don't look at any of her prior records. None of her, they didn't look at the prior stuff.
Really?
They gave them, they just get her in. Even the doctor who admitted her said, hey, we need to check into this. And when they admitted her for that 72 hours, they isolated her from her family and any other people that she used to have contact with, which is not a good idea.
Yeah.
Because she felt secluded and alone and so forth.
You lose your support system.
Yeah. They released her with no treatment plan. They put her back in the same emotionally charged environment that she was in when she came in.
Oh my
So
goodness.
they really just kind of didn't do anything for her.
What was the purpose then?
What they do for her, nothing. So that's what happened. I mean, like several hours after she was released, she committed suicide.
My goodness,
And so
that's so sad.
and the court said that based on the inadequate treatment rendered by the hospital when she was Baker Acted, that that her family could file a lawsuit and claim damages for that, and that case was allowed to proceed. So that's kind of one of the first cases I've seen of that, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
that is.
That is really interesting.
how that
Well,
happens.
we do have to take a quick break at this time, but we'll be right back. And I see that we've got some callers on the line. So that is something we'll dive right into. So you're listening to Legal Live, brought to you by Farah Farah on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. We'd love to hear from you, so call in now at 855-765-1045. We'll be right back after this quick break. Alrighty, welcome back. You're listening to Legal Live, brought to you by Farah Farah on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. I'm Sheifalika, and I'm joined today by Eddie and Chuck. We've got a caller on the line, actually, that has to do with the Baker Act. Let's go to Angela in St. Augustine. Hi, Angela.
Hi. Good
Hi.
morning
Angela.
Good morning.
or afternoon.
You're right.
I just got up about an hour ago, Angela. It's still morning for me. I'm with you on that one. Go ahead.
What's your
Okay,
question?
well, my question is, I was just listening to your comments on the Baker Act. Long story short, I ended up being Baker Acted the day that my spouse had taken his life. A little backstory: I have no history of mental illness. None of that, which the Baker Act is supposed to solely be used for people that actually have mental illness or are detached from reality and are understanding or comprehending, real life. It was used against me as a tool. I was isolated for 72 hours, taken away from my friends' family support group on the worst day of my life, experienced a traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if there's any type of legal recourse. for being unlawfully detained and held against my will without cause or even making suicidal gestures or comments.
Yeah, well, have you read the Baker? It's not based on your past history, and it could be partly, but you can be committed under the Baker Act if, as I can read. Let me just read it to you again. I mean, the Florida Baker Act allows doctors, mental health professionals, judges, and law enforcement. So you have to be one of those categories. An individual, like I cannot commit somebody under the Baker Act. You got to be one of those people, either a doctor, healthcare professional, judge, or law enforcement. If they display certain violent, or suicidal signs of mental illness, the history has nothing to do with it. If an officer comes up upon you and he feels that you're getting ready to do harm to yourself, he doesn't have time to go investigate your background. He can commit you based on what he sees right then. So it has nothing to do with the past.
If somebody goes through something.
Now, when you're committed, they're supposed to. That's what happened in this case. That's why they were allowed to sue, because they didn't look into her past. They could, if they had looked into her old medical records, they could have seen, hey, this person needs a treatment plan. This person, we need to do something for this person, and not just release her back into the same environment that she came in from.
Right, but one of the caveats to that, it's not supposed to be used on people that are intoxicated or have a physical disability such as a mental impairment, but it's supposed to be for people that are delusional and have no ability to comprehend reality. Seeing demons or snakes on them. That's actually what the Baker Act says. If you read further down on it, that's the caveat, is it has to be somebody that's expressing a delusion from reality and used as a last resort, where a family member or somebody is incapable of caring for that person and de-escalating it. It shouldn't just be, well, this person made a gesture or said something and we're locking them up.
I know, but it says here, the purpose of the act is to allow time for an evaluation and de-escalation of a crisis to protect vulnerable people from harm.
It's very like there's some discretion there.
Of course there is, because
and that's where they with the caller Angela calling in, I mean that may be where you may have gotten caught up with that discretionary part of it.
Yeah, but she can't. There's no really. I don't see a basis for a law. There's no. Her question is, can I file a lawsuit
because she was
improperly
That's
detained.
what I mean. So the discretion prevents that.
It would be very difficult to maintain that because you have to sue. You can't sue an individual. You got to sue a doctor or a law enforcement, and they're going to say based on the situation that I saw, I acted in her best interest. That claim is going to go nowhere, Angela. I think.
Is there any?
Well, when you're for example, like in my case. Law enforcement came to my house based on a neighbor who doesn't know me. I was there with friends, with other people, was not expressing any suicidal gestures or comments. I mean, I was grieving and I was upset, but I didn't make any disclaimer. And law enforcement literally took me from my house and had me locked up for 72 hours. Mm-hmm. I mean, no basis. I wasn't violent. I wasn't delusional. I wasn't making threats or gestures or anything. They just said, well, we're worried about you. Without any cause, without even speaking with me, they told me and took me.
So was the person who called the cops, were they the ones that instigated some kind of she threatened me kind of?
Yeah, but she had no claim. They didn't make the arrest.
No. They didn't. Yeah,
they just reported to the police. If you read the statute, only a police officer or a healthcare. Yeah. She couldn't do it. She reported to the police. The police acted upon that. I mean, now.
But without even speaking to me. So basically, your neighbor can call, or somebody.
No.
A vindictive person can call up and say, well, I'm worried about this person.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're taken from their home.
Yeah, you're right. But the police have to assess the situation. They're not going to just take
but the police didn't. So that would be my question, if there's legal resource. When they just base it off a comment or a claim made by somebody who I also have in the past had issues with.
Yeah, I'm not saying you can't make a claim. I'm not saying you can't make a claim, but it's really not a claim that I don't know. It's not a claim we would take. I mean, it'd be very difficult. There may be attorneys out there that are interested in doing it. Now, how long ago has it been? That's one thing.
Just within the last 6 months.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because if you're suing the state, now you could possibly sue the. I'm just kind of getting out there. If the allegations made by the person who called the police are totally baseless and was done with malice, you could probably sue that person for intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Right. Especially
so you do. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, you may have a cause of action against the person that called the police if it was totally baseless and without merit.
When somebody has the Baker Act imposed upon them, is there like an arrest report or some type of report that she can access to see the details of what the officer wrote about the situation?
There's her records. I mean, she can get the records from the hospital. That's where she needs to start.
Okay.
And there's an
that?
affidavit I think the police have to sign of some sort. There is some documentation involved in that. So you need to obtain that. But now thinking about it, I mean, I'm not saying it's a case that a lot of people would jump on and handle.
It seems like a difficult one.
It'd be difficult, but you do have a potential against the person that called the police if you know who that is. I don't know if that person. I don't know if that's even disclosed in the report. She says she knows who did it.
It
huh?
is. Okay.
It is.
It is. Okay.
It was in the police report.
Okay.
Okay, so you do have that. My question is, and maybe this is just as a layman and as a citizen, what kind of, why would you call the police on somebody who's just discovered such a terrible tragedy in their lives? Of course, they'll be grieving. People grieve in all kinds of ways on the day of such a terrible event. And first of all, Angela, I am sorry that you went through that. That is deeply heartbreaking.
Main thing is you're okay right now. That's all it really matters.
Yeah. I wonder if after that type of event, if she can take documentation with her and maybe proof of like my mental well-being, like I'm seeing a therapist or I'm proactive, I'm not violent or psychologically ill. So this was a malicious intent based on that individual who called in.
Well, the case we talked about at the beginning of the show, they didn't even do a suicide risk assessment.
Oh, I see.
I mean, there's all kind of egregiousness in this case we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They just brought her in. They never did a suicide risk assessment. Let her back into the same environment she was coming out of, and she.
Yeah, the facts really tell.
Yeah, it's all based on the facts.
Have everything to say.
Angela's in a different situation. I mean, this is totally different. She wants to claim for a wrongful Baker Act.
Right.
This was a proper Baker Act. They just didn't do what they were supposed to.
Right.
While they had her for 72 hours.
I'm sorry. Oh, I was going to say, I mean, in similar circumstances, though, and the way that they treat, at least in mine, and it sounds like this lady, we're isolated 72 hours. There was no treatment. There was actually not even any contact. Wow. There wasn't anybody evaluating. They're just basically holding you prisoner, not allowing you any contact with the outside world, not providing any counseling or treatment or anything. It's literally inmates receive better care and treatment held in a facility. And I even requested legal counsel. I was denied access to that. I was denied access to speaking with anybody in the outside world of my own free will. And thankfully, my family found me.
Wow.
And were able to make contact. But I was denied all rights and privileges.
No contact
and
with
not
the doctor.
treated.
In this
right,
case,
and not treated for anything, and just belittled by the actual psychologists that work there and called names and stuff. I mean, it was horrible. It was the worst experience of my life, aside from my love passing. But it's a horrible way to treat people, and it should be illegal, and it should be definitely looked into because I think they're making situations worse rather than treating them. And it's a mental health joke, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well,
I can see how you would feel that way. Yeah,
well, I can tell you this: in this case, if they did what they were supposed to do while she was in the case I talked about at the beginning, then maybe she wouldn't have committed suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't do what they were supposed. Like you said, they didn't do anything. In this case we're talking about today, they did nothing for 72 hours.
Yeah. And
this lady was a suicide risk, and nobody did anything. Within hours of her being released, she takes her own life.
Yeah.
I mean, so obviously somebody. Maybe what happens when you get in, you're right. It's not.
Yeah, well, it's not. I mean, they have the duty to perform examinations and then make a decision on what to do. Yeah. So, but if they never did that for her.
In Angela's case, they didn't do anything either. Yeah. Just like this case.
And that doesn't help the situation. Yeah. I'm
deeply sorry. I felt worse. I felt worse coming out than I did going in. I wasn't suicidal going in, but I was miserable, and they ruined my life coming out because it also sticks on your record forever. And so now, you're denied rights, you're flagged, everything else.
Are you
it's
sure?
Horrible.
Does he? I don't. I think
It
that's all
does.
confidential. Oh, I don't think so. I don't think
You will
anybody
be
has that.
flagged and you'll be put in a system where it says you've been Baker acted. And then if you apply for any, specific jobs that require background checks or to carry firearms, you're now denied that because you've been flagged.
That's
And it's
interesting.
ridiculous.
I'm gonna look into that and learn
Yeah,
more
I don't
for
know
sure.
about that. Are you sure about that?
I am. I've done my research on this. Like I said, it hit me pretty hard, and it ruined a good portion of my life. So
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Deeply sorry.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a little bit of homework on this and try.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna find out
get
about
some
that.
more
That's
information on
interesting.
this.
Interesting point you brought
all
up.
right. Well,
Well-
I appreciate your information and your
Thanks,
time.
Angela.
And
Thank you so
Thanks for
much for
tuning
calling,
in.
Angela. I wish you the very best.
thank you.
You guys are listening to Legal Live, brought to you by Farah Farah on 104.5. We're about to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Legal Live, brought to you by Farah Farah on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. I'm Sheifalika, and I'm joined today by Eddie and Chuck. We just had a call from Angela regarding the Baker Act, and over the break, I did a little bit of homework really quickly. And Angela, if you're still listening, and for anybody out there who's interested in understanding the Baker Act better, I have a resource for you, Angela. It's the Citizens Commission on Human Rights in Florida. And what this organization does, it helps fight psychiatric human rights abuses. So I have a website and a phone number for you guys if you're ready. You can call this number, 800-782-2878, and get some free help. That's 1-800-782-2878. And you can go to their website, cchrflorida.org. And this human rights organization may be able to answer some questions and also guide you through a process of possibly removing this Baker Act, if that's at all feasible. Good luck to you, Angela, and thank you so much for your call. Let's go to our next caller. Are you guys ready?
We are.
All right. Let's go to Greg in Arlington, who's in a lawsuit over some pipes and needs advice. You guys, this is a common call we get. Greg, how's it going?
It's going good. How y'all doing?
All
Fine,
right.
man.
Pretty good.
How can we help you?
So, about 4 years, maybe 5 years ago, something came down the pipe, excuse the pun, about a pipe lawsuit for houses that was built,
Right.
before 1974. So, my home qualified for it. We went through the whole process, and they send out plumbers or whoever to evaluate the home to see if it qualified, and it did. So it came back with $265,000 worth of damage, and then the insurance companies and the lawyers went back and forth, and we finally got to mediation, and they been to mediation twice. That was rejected. Went again. That was rejected. And so I don't know if I should switch law firms or if I should, continue with this law firm. It's just hell. My house is like, my daughter had a party one time, and all the water and the plumbing stopped working in the house. And it's just,
Right.
I don't know what to do in that.
Right. Well, tell you, I can talk to you about that. Is there a dispute over the amount of the money? Is that what you're fighting over? The amount, or
Well,
are there issues?
like I
Are there
said-
other legal issues like whether there's coverage or not?
no, I guess the lawyers are just fighting over money, and it went, like I said, from
Yeah.
265.
Yeah, but
Now
Go ahead. You want to be
they did offer a settlement of $100,000, but then the lawyer rejected that. I guess because y'all have to get y'all amount out of it too. But my other question is, should I settle or go to a jury trial? And because what if I'm settling for the $50,000, but the damage that
right.
they originally estimated is more than $50,000,
Right.
and I take $50,000, and
You can't do the
the
work.
original thing when they did it was $265,000.
You can't do the work. Yeah, it went from 265 to 100.
Wow, that's a
yeah,
big
so-
decrease.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I have a nice home. I live in a nice area. It's Charter Point. I don't know if y'all familiar
Oh
with
yeah,
that
it's a
area.
real nice area.
Yeah.
That is nice.
My uncle lives out there.
My home is worth my home is worth a nice amount of money, so it's not like, I'm just trying to get money and, taking and buy me a new car. I want my home fixed, so if I do decide to sell it, when they came in and did the evaluation and they look and see, well, the plumbing messed up, no, we're not going to give you what
Right.
Oh yeah.
And you
I
need a
just don't
functional
want-
home for you and your family.
That's going to devaluate. Obviously, they're going to find out. They're going to know it's got the lead pipes in it. And here's what I would
Right.
recommend, because I don't want to, you don't know who's listening and all that, and what you say here.
Right.
This is all being recorded. People can get it.
That's fair.
Insurance companies can get it. So what I would recommend, Greg, is leave your phone number, and we'll reach out to you about it.
Yeah, Daniel, our producer, will
And
take your
then
number.
you can, and it costs nothing to talk to us, and you can make a decision as to what you want to do. But at least you'll
Okay.
get some free, you'll get some ideas from somebody else that knows what they're doing.
Okay.
I will
'cause
say
we
you're
do-
not the only
Okay.
one
Yeah.
that has this kind of problem.
Yeah, 'cause
Okay.
we have attorneys that deal with these issues, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a personal injury guy, but our office does handle, busted pipe cases, homeowners
Right.
claims. We have hundreds and hundreds of Ian claims we're working on.
Right.
So we're kind of familiar with that. I am not, but the attorneys in my office are. So I was going to try to connect Greg
Okay.
with one of them for
Yeah.
some free advice.
Yeah.
Then that way he can make an intelligent choice.
You can get a second opinion.
Yeah, if that- if-
Absolutely.
Then maybe that, I don't know, maybe the lawyer in my office will say, yeah, hey, that's a good deal. Based on the way the law is now and everything, take the 100 and run. Or he may say, no, you got to,
You got to go to jury,
I
maybe.
can get you more money,
Yeah, you guys helped me like that when I had a problem with my pipes busted. They were cast iron and they blew up inside my foundation.
Yeah.
So my insurance
Right.
was fighting my condo's insurance, trying to blame each other. And I was stuck without a kitchen.
Right.
I was like, what do I do with my life?
Right.
So I feel you, Greg.
Right.
And definitely leave your number. Stay on
I
the
tell
line.
you, Greg, what the insurance company, you're not covered by this, but these insurance companies now and all these new insurance policies are writing, they have these statute of limitations in there that are cutting out all these pipe cases. That was, you don't have to worry about
Right.
it. That's just the new stuff. But
Wow,
yeah,
really?
yeah, they're
But
cutting
no.
it, and they're doing other stuff where they won't cover it and all that. But
What is their job? They're supposed to cover us.
They don't want to.
Oh, they excluded everything.
read your policy. There's more exclusions than what they cover.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But you have to have it to have your home.
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay.
That's right.
Greg, well,
yeah,
listen.
Greg, leave your number. We'll be in phone contact next week, probably Monday or Tuesday.
That's right. That's right. And
All right,
I know
thank-
this is a headache.
thank y'all
Hang
very
in
much.
there. Don't let them,
Thank you.
stress you out. Okay.
Take advantage.
Yeah. Get your second opinion.
Yes.
And
Listen, I tell you, if sometimes you want, well, I know what the attorney in our office will say, but he's willing to try. He tries a lot of. He's tried a lot of cases.
yeah.
Some
He's
lawyers,
great.
some lawyers are afraid to go to court. The guy in our office is willing to, because sometimes I'm telling you, if you're a jury, if you got homeowners on the jury, let me tell you, Greg, what you got going for you. Just put yourself in you're on it. Let's say, you got 6 people there, and they're going, wait a minute. Their home is probably their most valuable asset,
Right.
and they're going, wait a minute.
Right.
This guy had insurance coverage.
At the time of the problem, and
people
the
can
problem
really.
happened.
You have a case that people can empathize with,
Absolutely.
because everybody can say, wow, man, that could be me.
that could be them. Absolutely.
And,
And with plumbing issues, that'll break down a house really quickly.
and when they're trying to shortchange you like that,
Don't I know?
Don't you know it? Yeah. Well, listen, don't lose heart, okay? Keep that fight
yeah,
in
we'll
you.
get you
Get
another
your second opinion.
We'll get you another opinion.
And I trust me, if they send you to the guy they sent me to, he's going to be right on
Hopefully.
top of it. He'll look at your case immediately and give you
Hopefully,
great
yeah, well,
advice.
he's a good guy. So.
Yeah, and I won my little settlement. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. All right. Well, you guys, we have another break coming up, but we have
yeah.
a very important caller left
From
on our
Edward, yeah.
list. We're going to get to Edward. Hang in there. Edward, we're coming to you next. You're listening to Legal Live, brought to you by Farah and Farah on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. I'm Sheifalika, and we're joined by Eddie and Chuck. We'll be right back after this quick break. Alrighty, we are back. You're listening to Legal Live, brought to you by Farah and Farah on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. I'm Sheifalika, and I'm joined today by Eddie and Chuck, and we have been talking a lot today about the Baker Act, which is really interesting. And it's a real thing that happens to everybody. I mean,
Very
many
powerful.
people. Very powerful.
I mean, you can have somebody locked up for 72 hours.
Absolutely. That's an incredible thing. And then apparently the experience of going through it is really not good.
Yeah.
So we do have another caller online that has a comment about the Baker Act, Edward from Jacksonville. What's up, Edward?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Okay, I just my mother, she had small cell cancer. She was eaten alive. I mean, she died a few years ago.
I'm sorry.
She was hospitalized. She was already in the hospital care, and she had an adverse effect to the medication morphine. She went into really way out. She was hallucinating, and they called me up at work to come get her, or they were going to Baker Act her while she was in the care of the hospital. Was that would they? What I'm saying is, would that have been legal of them since she was already in their care and they're the ones that gave her the medication?
Well, they were probably wanting her to get some psychological help. I mean,
Well, they called me to come pick her up, or they're going to Baker Act her.
Because of her behavior after the medication she was administered.
Yes,
well, I've never
yes.
heard of that.
When I went up to her hospital,
Wow.
when I was
Edward.
went up in the hospital room, she was hallucinating about squirrels and some dude under her bed and everything. She was really bad.
Whoa.
Yeah, but Edward, I mean, are you sure they used the word Baker Act?
Yes.
Well,
Interesting.
Well, they could have
They
Baker.
told me.
Well, that's what they were going to do if he didn't pick her up.
Yeah.
Well, that
Well,
makes
that's
sense.
what they were.
You're gonna Baker Act somebody because they're a danger to themselves. What are they?
Yeah.
To tell him to come get her? It doesn't make sense. Doesn't jive. I mean, if she was a
I mean,
danger,
it was-
huh?
I mean, yes,
I
she
mean, you
was in
just
the
can't-
day,
Go ahead.
but they were threatening me. I had to leave work to come get her. So, I mean, even though she was already admitted to the hospital in a hospital room already.
Hmm. And so
I don't
do you know the
that-
medication they administered? Was it
she's
something she
They gave her some morphine.
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 But it says that's a substance type abuse. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't Baker Act somebody who's intoxicated or is under,
Yeah.
it's got to be
Exactly.
true
That's what
mental
Angela
true
said, too.
mental illness. She was hallucinating because of the
Morphine.
medication.
Yeah, I've never.
And
Yeah.
I mean, going through sickle cell.
I don't
or-
know that they could have Baker
Singles.
Act her.
Yeah.
I don't think they could have
Yeah,
done
that
I
was
don't
just a
think it would
ploy.
fit.
You know what that is? They
that-
wanted to get her out of there, and tried to. That's what it was.
Oh,
They probably
Pawning
didn't
it
want-
off on me. Pawning on
Exactly.
her
Yeah.
hallucinating on me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like
I
I
mean-
said, it's more to help anybody in that situation. That's why I was calling.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I had to leave work to come get her because they threatened to Baker Act her while
Right.
she was already in a hospital room. She was already there for like 3 days.
Right. And cancer patients get morphine treatment sometimes when they're going through some really painful situations. And
Yeah, she like I said, she had small cell cancer, and
Mhm.
it literally ate her alive.
My goodness.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
I'll
so
tell you, the
sorry,
thing
Edward.
is, this Baker Act thing. I mean, it's a wet. I mean, it's
It's a weapon.
it's a wet.
Kinda.
72 hours.
People
Oh,
throw that name around to get
Mhm.
action.
I know, but that's
They don't
why
really know what
you have to be a law enforcement person or a healthcare professional to commit to really do it.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know what the data. It'd be interesting to find out the statistics on how many people are Baker acted and
I
the
will look
results
that
of
up
all
right
that.
now. Watch.
But like I said, I mean, she was already hospitalized, and they're the ones that gave her the medication that
Yeah.
she had the adverse effect. I mean, I don't. If they gave it to her, they should have taken care of it instead of calling me up, threatening to Baker Act her to pick her up.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the Baker Act is the hospitals make money. I mean, they get paid.
Yeah.
They probably like people being Baker acted because that brings in money for them. They get to bill the state. I'm sure the state has to Medicare or the state or the government they get paid. And so, I mean, and a 3-day hospitalization is real dollars, you know.
Mhm.
And I mean, so who knows? Maybe there's a financial or profit component to it.
Well,
But I think in your case, they probably didn't want her in the hospital for some reason.
Yeah.
And they just
Yeah,
threatened.
I mean,
It's a threat. You know?
yeah. That's what I figured. They threatened. They pawned her off on me, even though I spent a day and a half with her for that medication to wear off. Once it wore off, She was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's why they could not have Baker acted her. I mean, that was just a ploy.
that was a ploy to get rid of her because they didn't. Well, it looks like from some of the data I just found in Florida, from our population, apparently we have 21 million, 21.5 million, and the Baker Acts have skyrocketed across the state of Florida by 121% from 2001 to 2002. 95,000 people were Baker acted. In 2018 to 2019, right before the pandemic, 210,000.
I believe it.
210,000.
Yeah, people can. Well, I don't know what
There's
that
probably
means.
more from that pandemic.
But what do you?
Those
but
are
what do
just
you,
adults, not children, apparently. That's also risen.
but who knows what it means? I mean, are
Who
people
knows, yeah.
getting? I don't know. I mean,
That's interesting.
are they fabricating? You don't know if there's fabrication going on. You don't know.
Yeah.
Who
Wow.
knows? Anyway.
Well, the
yeah,
Baker
thanks.
Act is a powerful thing, and
It
that's
is,
fascinating as far as.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Edward. I'm sure there are a bunch of stories out there about it.
Yeah, it seems like every story we look into,
it's
been
a good
terrible.
act. It's just when it's abused. You know, if it's used for the right purposes, then it can save lives. You know, and help people.
Yeah, it's just according. All right.
But
So
the
Angela
word-
just called in. We just got
Yeah.
that everybody who's admitted for 72 hours is a $16,000 bill. I mean, that's
Right.
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of money for 3 days. I mean, you're not getting a surgery or anything. You're just kind of
No.
under observation. That's a lot of money.
that is.
That is a lot of money.
That's an
yeah.
expensive bed.
That expensive bed right
Yeah,
there. It's a $high-dollar hotel right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't.
And it, according to
3
a
days. You're
That's
talking
Ritz
about
Carlton money.
You're talking about $5,000 a night, over $5,000 a night.
My goodness. Angela left a note with our producer saying that the Baker Act cost her $160,000.
No,
16,000.
16,000.
Or 16,000.
Yeah, it's
There's
like
an extra zero in there, Daniel.
No, it's like $5,000 a night.
Wow, my goodness. That's like a ambulance ride to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then they don't do anything. They just leave you there isolated. I think isolation is one of the worst things you can do to anybody, even in a healthy psychological
Well, no,
state.
they're supposed to give you treatment and evaluation, and then make a move, either admit you into a mental institution or release you. Maybe it was maybe they're okay. You know.
Well, they can keep you if it's after their
But when they just
evaluation.
let you sit there with no treatment,
That's what
And
happened
with the
in this.
psychologist that maybe didn't necessarily. I want to speak to a psychologist about who actually works with Baker Act cases and see, like, what is your protocol? What are your procedures to get through this? How do you evaluate someone? And what, beside an interview with you, do they get? You know, as far as human interaction and medical treatment. Well, you guys, this has been a really powerful show and very interesting with some open-ended questions at the end of our show today.
Yeah, well, I had some other stuff to cover, but this is took priority, which is good.
Yeah, we had some good callers today.
Always good. So,
running towards the end.
yeah, we want
That's
to appreciate
true.
everybody. I really don't have time to get into something else right now, but
Yeah.
thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you later. Appreciate it.
That's right. You're listening to Legal Live, brought to you by Farah and Farah on 104.5 WOKV, Jacksonville's News and Talk. Thank you to Greg, Angela, and Edward and for calling in, and we'll see you again next week. Have a happy Super Bowl weekend, everybody, and be safe out there. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
There's a normal picnic in the park. Then a slice above that is a picnic with generous servings of Kretschmar meats and cheeses. And a slice above that is having all your friends there to share it with. And a slice above that is having all their friends there as well. And a slice above that is having so many people and so much Kretschmar it turns into a festival of you. Kretschmar, a slice above, now at Walmart.